Hey, what's up everyone? Sanglutan here, and we are back for another Dune game. A bit of a different one this time, because this is actually a tournament game from the Cheesable Grand Vision Digital Imperium tournament. Obviously, as you probably know, I've already done my 4 games of the group, so if you haven't seen them, I'd strongly encourage you to have a quick look at that playlist. The first 4 videos obviously are those 4 games I'm referring to, and I'll spoil the result right now. So if you haven't seen them, go have a watch, because those are interesting, very interesting games. Yeah, so after, hopefully nobody here hasn't watched them, so I'll go on now and spoil them. After 2 first places and 2 third places, we ended up on 14 points and are in the top 4 currently, although it is not quite guaranteed. Thing is, other group mates from that group B where I am in were looking for a stand-in to play their game, because one player dropped off. So I ended up standing in as a straw hat player, like just competing, but obviously it wouldn't mean anything for my own points. It is still very significant for me, obviously, because as much as I play right and well, as much points I take away from my opponents. So this is still an important game, although not directly impacting my points. One more thing to add is that it is a bit of a different format, because actually my wife was working in the same room as me when I was playing that game, so I couldn't talk. I had to play it in silence, so I'm gonna voice it over right now and take commenting over it and using my notes to try and bring as much context in my thoughts as possible when I was playing it, to make it a bit of a different format as well. And a shorter one, I decided to set the video on a 2x speed, so that it's also a bit easier for me to comment over it. Now, let me know, obviously, how you like that kind of format, and depending on the feedback I get, maybe we could also see that kind of voiced over, shortened or sped up game a bit more often than on the channel, if you guys enjoy it. So yeah, let me know. And last thing before we jump in the game now, we could have a quick look at the table of the Group B, so that we get a better feeling of the context in which we played that game. Just as a disclaimer, I was not really aware of that table before playing. I did not really care that much, to be honest. I knew where I was sitting pretty much, but the other players, to be honest, I didn't really have in mind, which is also, I think, better, so that I did not get influenced by that at the time of playing. I built those tables afterwards, before recording this short intro, so that we can have a bit of a better context on what we are playing for and what it means for us. So we played in this game against Coco28, which is in second place here, and and Jalboj, which are second to last and third to last, respectively. Yeah, so here one thing to note is that I sorted the table by points per game, so that those who only played 3 games are still like somehow adequately placed in the table, because otherwise, obviously, it would be twisted towards those who played more games, like Webben and myself. Based on the points per game, TOURNEY and Toko28, both on 3 games played, have the most points. And obviously that implies that they should continue on that same average if they want to beat Webben and me. But we, with 14 points, are not too badly placed. The last column that we can see here is VP percentage. This is the tiebreaker. For instance, when it comes to Webben and myself, we both ended up on 14 points. Now, how do we know who got like the 4th place in case we end up being 4th and 5th respectively? Well, in that case, the tiebreaker would be VP percentage, which is basically a measure of how many victory points you got out of the total obtained points in the games you played. So to make it simple, if I ended up first in a game with 10 VPs, thanks to a chommer key, let's say, that wins me all the tiebreakers, and all the other players, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, also had 10 points, well, then the total number of points in that game was 40. My own share was 10, so I would get an even 25% of the VP percentage. It's a very interesting measure, actually. I didn't realize it would be that close to 25. In the end, it does not go above 29 here, and 29 seems pretty high already compared to the rest of the base that we see here. But it is a very interesting observation to have there. Last point on that table is the names that have been grayed out are basically the ones that cannot catch up to me anymore. So specifically for my view of the tournament, as we can see, there are still 5 names in white here, including myself. So obviously we are 5 fighting for the top 4. So yeah, that would be it in terms of getting a bit of context on that game. So let's jump straight now into the recording of the game, sped up 2x, and I will comment over it live as we go right now. So yeah, let's go. So as you can see, I was fully dressed as I usually am for the tournament games. I wanted to take it seriously. So yeah, we see the decks here, nothing too interesting here. Gurney, obviously very interesting, shifting allegiances, negotiated withdrawal, some very interesting plays, potentially set up. At first I wanted Armand or Handro here, both were taken, so I went for Yuna as player 1. Usually you can get quite some Solari generation, so this is the idea here, to hit wealth with the second agent, and obviously here not much to ask, we would open with smuggling. The goal being obviously to get Swordmaster in round 2. Basically going smuggling now, getting 2 Solari, then wealth for 3 Solari, and then round 2 hopefully get wealth again for another 3 Solari, and that would be our 8 needed for Swordmaster round 2. Artillery picked up. Nobody going to full space is quite interesting. Here I actually realize that my hand won't be so great next hand. Even if I get to wealth and Swordmaster, my last agent would have to be a dagger, which is not great. So I figured, especially given wealth has been blocked, why not triggering a reshuffle there and get 2 Solari in a bit of a different way by jumping in the combat. Arakin obviously allowing us to draw a dagger as well, so that then round 2 we would reshuffle the deck. Obviously shifting allegiances was the prime target here for the kind of persuasion we had. And then we see negotiated withdrawal being picked up as well. Beast being torn up between playing that agent to Aga and, well, revealing. Which was maybe a bit of a questionable choice. Why then going Menta? We got Allied Armada off that second place in the combat. Obviously Handro knows what our intrigue is. Here I was looking at my hand and I was already potentially considering maybe a High Council for Gurney, given we wouldn't get Swordmaster this round, because even going to wealth now, which we still do, only gives us 7 Solari. But yeah, Gurney was a strong up. As you can see, I'm hesitating a bit looking at my options, but yeah, High Council was one option I was strongly considering there. And now we see Lady Jessica coming up, and there I'm all set on doing that High Council play, because we would get to 7 persuasion with the High Council. There we go. Beast with 3 troops in. recognizing that we most likely have Lady Jessica. Andrew going hardy for the combat. And there we go, pick up Lady Jessica round 2 after shifting round 1. We can deem ourselves really lucky there. Especially with that kind of row with Opulence, Gurney. It is not a bad thing to have a high council. The victor was then the first intrigue that Hanjo chose, which makes sense. I mean, it's not a great choice, but Alara Armada was too long term for him to pick up. I would have agreed with that play of his. So here is funny, because I see Beast on 8, Solari, and he spends it on Menta, and I'm thinking, well, smuggling down would give me Soulmaster, but I think it's a bait. I think he has Windfall in his intrigue, so that he gets those extra 2 Solari and can get Soulmaster before me anyways. So I kind of give up on that Soulmaster play, and I rather decide to make the most out of the agents I have, which I thought at that time was unlocking shipping for myself and using that shifting allegiances to do so. Because that would mean basically I would get shipping the next 2 rounds given Andro and Armand play after me. We see Beast rushing an alliance as well, probably to make the most out of his signet, but meaning he actually didn't go Swordmaster, so I kind of thought I read his intrigue and his bait, but was completely wrong. I could have gone for Swordmaster myself this round. I'm also not super happy about that. I should just have gone for it. At that moment I felt like this was maybe a bit of a big misplay, to be fair. Because getting Swordmaster round 3 would have been great. Now it looks more like I'll get it round 5, most likely, because Beast can go there next round. Test of Humanity is also a very good card for us, obviously. I mean, it's a good card for anyone, especially to deny anyone else from having it, because it can be a pain. Denying Spicemouth flows played by an opponent. At this point I'm quite happy with my deck, but not super happy not having my Swordmaster, obviously. We drew back into shifting. And here we see that actually we can get Swordmaster ourselves. Because Beast he still got it last round then. It does hurt though to go there with shifting when you're lacking 1 spice, because it feels a bit like wasting the shifting at this stage, but Swordmaster is Swordmaster. It is very useful to have it for the rest of the game. So it's a no-brainer. Even though obviously not ideal. Here my thoughts were to send the third agent on Hardy Warriors potentially to get closer to the Fremen Alliance, to get those 2 bumps on the shipping track, and then ideally next round to actually activate the ring on the shipping track. Activating the ring while using the shipping track by recalling for Solari and getting an additional bump, an additional 2 bumps actually, one from the shipping track and one from the ring. So this could allow us to take the Fremen Alliance and almost cap it already. I think that's what I'll end up doing here. When you see me typing, by the way, like right now, it's not because I'm like distracted, it's because I actually take notes of my rounds. So that right now when I do the voiceover, I knew I wouldn't be able to do it right after the game. So now it's actually 2 days after the game, so now I have my notes on the side. I can read those notes and make the comments as we go. So thank you, Sun Gluten from the past. Allows me to do probably a better job now in voicing it over, thanks to those notes. Web of Power though, this is huge. But we probably don't get it because he's 3 years before us. Yeah, there he goes. Does not leave us with a great choice. As you can see, I'm a bit annoyed with that choice that is remaining for us. I'm hesitating. But I still end up taking it because it is an access to wealth, so it gives us a bit more in terms of faction access, relieves a bit of pressure from the diplomacy as well, and it is important as Yuna to get some access to Solari as well. So there we go, we are all set up on the track beautifully so that our ring can be used to go the shipping track, but we don't draw the ring. That's why I'm a bit annoyed there. You can see myself shaking my head. I realize that actually Lady Jessica will allow me to draw the ring for sure. So I just set up on the track, take the alliance already, take the Solari to prepare for the ring. And there we go. I'm just checking, I guess, if Armand has any like additional threat in terms of taking that Fremen alliance from us. So here will be time to play Lady Jessica for sure, ideally to secret so that we can get ourselves going for that Bene Gesserit friendship as well. All that spice is also looking very good, and now thanks to the ring we have desert access. So if Armand doesn't take it with his 2 water, she doesn't obviously because he needed to go Swordmaster, then we should be in position to take it. What's going in my mind is, do I really use the signet ring bump on Fremen? Because I'm thinking I actually have shifting allegiances. So my idea is actually to cap it off at once, making sure we use the influence wisely. And basically here just bumping 1 more does not protect us from potentially Armand doing some crazy stuff and getting like to overtake us there. So I figured I'll leave it as it is on the Fremen track. If Armand overtakes us, fair enough, we have shifting to potentially take it back and cap it there. And if he he's not taking it, then fair, we can probably play it a bit more lean and look into maybe securing other alliances with my usual greediness. I'm hesitating between Opulence and Gurney because I can see that we will reveal first normally. And I mean, Opulence already has that direct VP potential from revealing it and paying Solari to get a VP. Gurney has more that combat potential, where it's also interesting because it can be worth a lot at the end of the game. Round 7 or so, when the combats are worth 2 VPs, you're pretty happy to have a Gurney on your side. But I think with anyone else but Yuna, I would certainly have taken Gurney. Here, I felt like our deck is not very combat oriented. It's more like on the influence side with shifting, with Lady Jessica, also persuasion side. So I ended up taking Opulence because of who we are as a leader. Yuna generates a lot of Solari. Let's just try to make the most out of that Solari. And that's why Opulence was there. Here, I mean, we have 9 spies, so that's huge. We drew our only Highlander access with Diplomacy, and then we have still 9 cards to go in the deck. Highlander is also a good way to get to water easily. It could also mean we get a VP from the combat. So I figured it's probably now or never in terms of getting a Highlander out. And I think I set my mind on that. I'm not sure I do it with my first agent, to be honest, so I'm discovering it again as well. I think so, right? Yeah, because then those 2 water might allow us to go for a research maybe and get the Spice Flow at the end of this round. The idea here is definitely to get points on the board to grab what we can see, and what we can see right now is a point on the combat side and potentially Spice Flow at the end of this round as well. The additional benefit of that is that it allowed us to use Diversion, the intrigue card, that can be triggered only when we deploy 4 or more troops at once, which is obviously the case with Highlander. So it allowed us to go up on the track with that intrigue card. Now potentially we could drop down going from smuggling, which allows us not only to take the Solari, but also an additional bump in 2 troops, which is good. And the Solari obviously would allow us to trigger the ring effect. I was also potentially thinking of research station, but the odds were very low in terms of getting a Spice Flow actually. It was only a 70% chance to hit the Spice Flow, even down to 46% chance if we wanted to reach 10 persuasion in order to play our third agent. Given smuggling was blocked though, I still opted to go for research station to see what that brings us, and we were quite lucky with the draw because we got that 46% chance of hitting 10 persuasion. I thought of maybe going for Chomerky with my last agent here on Technigo, then I realized I actually need that spice or Allied Armada if combat goes to that. But yeah, I was thinking Test of Humanity to Chomerky would be a nice little trick on my opponents as well, maybe denying Armand Spice Flow, which does not seem to be the case, but still it's always nice to mess a bit with their cards or troops, depending on what they choose. Here, for instance, Handro had to lose a intrigue card by discarding Embedded Agent. I ended up going for, obviously not for Chomerky because we needed to keep 2 spies, but for the Wind Traps, which gives us 1 water right there, plus potentially another water from winning the combat, which was obviously our plan here. So this was the idea here, and this would bring us back to 2 water, potentially hitting research station again next round. Andro setting up a nice negotiated withdrawal there. And just keeping 1 Dreadnought in for a water, which is very, very good value, obviously. Here, I was actually surprised that he did not cap his Racing Guild alliance, which I think, to be honest, was a mistake. Because what I showed with the mouse before is we have shifting coming up, and we are set on the track, so we could set up a triple bump there, dealing an alliance. Obviously, Handro was one of the more threatening players at this stage, and capping an alliance, if you can do that, it's absolutely huge. Especially if it also denies so much influence from an opponent, as you can see here. I mean, Handro was already almost at the top of his Racing Guild track, and if we can deny him the alliance at this stage, it's basically a huge waste of influence that he had. This obviously is too tempting to turn down, although it means we put our Fremen alliance at risk, but we capped another alliance that we didn't have yet, so it is a very sensible play, at least in my opinion here. These kind of plays are just so satisfying, being able to shift on the shipping track with a triple bump. I mean, that's just mean. Yeah, I think we just decide to go for the friendship there. Oh, never mind, we already had the friendship, so this is actually going for a third alliance, making the text dance for a second here, because why not? And here we got one spice from the control of Imperial Basin, which I kind of noticed in the middle of the round there. He's going for it. I figured I'm not going to deploy anything because Sardaukar Legion on reveal allows me to deploy them all if I want to, and here the idea was I can't get a Spice Must Flow with that hand, so let's spend the Persuasion because nothing too interesting on the row neither, and let's try to deny maybe Spice Must Flows from others. Subscribe pop-up obviously pops a bit more often than usual because we have the video in 2x, so sorry about that. Decide not to deploy here because we can't get much out of the combat. And Armand, I realize Armand can cap the Fremen alliance with that win on Grand Vision, but it is not so big of a deal for us because with shifting allegiances we can always recycle part of that influence we dropped in Fremen to get maybe the Emperor point or to take the Bene Gesserit alliance. I'm not too disappointed at that. Then I realized he also had Demand Respect, which obviously is a strong combo for him. He is now on 8 points. I'm trying to think here if it's worth using the ring ability, given we should have opulence coming up with maybe a research. Now the idea was maybe to go research station into Haga Basin and then end up with Conspire for the Emperor friendship, using the ring on the Emperor bump, and then Opulence, getting that point on reveal, plus a Spice Must Flow, which was a bit the ideal play here. Not sure we can actually reach the Spice Must Flow with that play. Here I'm still hesitating. I think I realize I cannot get a Spice Must Flow with that play, so I'll end up changing my mind and going for the ballsy play. Obviously the greedy one, taking the Bene Gesserit alliance to get that extra intrigue maybe for a draw. It is not a draw, it ends up being something a bit more expensive than Opulence. So Chom Share is obviously converting into a VP for 7 Solari. Opulence has a discount because it only costs 6 Solari. So I'm a bit trying to figure out how we can get those extra Solari by the end of the game, because it was not expected, obviously. I think I keep the idea definitely of going Aga to then allow for a Conspire, because that's our only way to trigger Opulence or Chom Shares for all that matters, but Opulence is cheaper, and obviously it is the moment we have it in hand, so this takes an absolute priority, because Chom Shares, technically we have it in the hand, I mean, constantly, so whenever we have the Solari we could use it. Opulence is a now or never kind of situation. We get Windfall, which is actually not so bad for us, for maybe targeting Chom Shares and Opulence point. But we basically need 13 Solari, and Windfall gives us 3, as we are Yuna. But that means we're 1 Solari short of that. And we are, by the way, also 1 Persuasion short from that Chom Directorship that popped up, which would have given us the Emperor Friendship. So basically, 1 Persuasion short and 1 or 1 Solari short of closing the game right there. Which obviously would have been great, because any following rounds we kind of put our greediness at risk with that Bene Gesserit alliance that becomes a target, definitely. So here I'm a bit annoyed, obviously, that we can't get to the Chom Directorship, because it would have been a nice way of getting that 10th point and of protecting a bit further the Bene Gesserit alliance. Try and close it this round. Obviously, Armand has a shot at closing it this round with 2 intrigues and being not too far away from a 2nd place. Here I am obviously strongly hoping to see a Shifting Allegiances in our next hand to be able to tap the Bene Alliance. Because here Beast takes it, taking Chom Directorship instead of taking a Spicemouth Flow, which was a very risky play for him, because yes, it allowed him to maybe get a Water and a couple of Solari from the bonuses on the Spacing Guild and Fremen tracks, allowed him to protect a bit that Emperor alliance, and allowed him 1 VP basically on taking the Bene alliance. The thing is, it's not capped, and he knows we have a Shifting, so this VP is at risk for him, whereas a Spicemouth Flow would obviously have been a safe VP for him, in the sense that no one could take it from him. Here I am obviously a bit annoyed not having the Shifting in hand. So I'm now thinking that I could actually set up a huge draw engine with Lady Jessica to selective, I would say. I think is what I do. So here we draw Shifting as the last card, the very next card, so that's why as my head I was like, come on, that was exactly what I needed, like in my first 5 cards, not as the 6th card, because now obviously Beast could cap it by going secrets, and then we kind of lose the ability to use Shifting, at least for that. We could always use it to get the Emperor Friendship. He's doing his own draw engine there with 4 cards thanks to Gurney on Research Station. But here I'm thinking of using Shifting. Then I actually realize I don't even need to. I could just go Secrets, still have 10 Persuasion, so maybe to play another card Ah no, never mind, I have the sister, so I end up using Test of Humanity, maybe deny some spice with flows from opponents. Realizing I have the Bene Gesserit sister in hand, so the reveal is not 11 but 13 at this moment. Now using Test of Humanity it goes down to 11, but it basically means I can play any card I want as my last agent and I'll still have 9 persuasion. Now I'm thinking obviously what can I do with my last agent to get both Chomshes and Opulence reveal going, and the answer to that is through shifting. Shifting to get the Solari and get enough for Opulence costing 6 and Chomshe 7. I need a total of 15 Solari. But I realize here that actually taking the Solari is maybe not the best idea, because, I mean, it's very fine margins, but taking the Solari would allow me... Wait, my math was not mathing as well? Because... Ah no, never mind, I needed 13 Solari. So it would have worked to take the Solari instead of the Spice here, but then it would have meant I would be 1 Solari worse off than doing what I just did. Because taking the Spice and using it on shifting gave me the Emperor friendship, and it was net 0 in terms of Spice, and I would end up the game with 2 Solari, because I would keep Chomshes non-activated, spend Opulence 6 Solari, I would be with 2 Solari. Whereas if I took the Solari here instead of the Spice, I would still have only 1 Spice, and I would have taken here 6 Solari, so 14 Solari. I would have needed to spend 6 on Opulence and 7 on Chomshes, so I would have ended up with 1 Solari. So what I just did basically gave us a net gain of 1 Solari, or net savings of 1 Solari, plus in the unlikely event we still get an intrigue or something out of the combat or whatever, we would have set up also our Emperor track on 3 influence, meaning plans within plans could technically work. So this was why I ended up taking the Spice for a shifting instead of taking the Solari for a Chomshes. So here we end up on 12 VPs. And Beast got the combat for 2 VPs. Grand Conspiracy. Your plans within plans actually was fully active on Beast. He got to 12 points and we won by 1 miserable little Spice. Let me switch back to this screen. So yeah, we won by just 1 Spice, and it shows that Beast should actually have gotten the Spice with flow instead of the Chom directorship, not risking it on stealing our alliance, because that 1 VP would have changed it quite significantly for him. So as we can see now, the table here is still the one from before the tournament game, and now after this game, even Toko 28 ended up 4th, he just got 1 point out of it, and anyways, ... and Jalboj were actually already eliminated technically. So, and it did not impact our points. Obviously, we still had 14. And now let's have a quick look at the table after. The table after basically means Toko 28 cannot overtake us anymore. He's not eliminated from the tournament, because it could still be that Benito, for instance, does not reach 12 VPs, 12 points in total here. So it could be that Toko still ends up in the top 4, but what is sure is that he cannot overtake us. So here, both Webben and me are guaranteed a spot in the top 4, whereas the last spot is basically between Toko28 and Benito Max, because TOURNEY, even if he ends up 4th, will end up with 13 points, which is one more than Toko. So yeah, that was it for that voiceover, for that tournament game where I acted as a stand-in. Let me know if you enjoyed that format. And as usual, if you could hit that like and subscribe button, would be huge. Otherwise, we see ourselves again on one of my live streams, hopefully. And if not, feel free to keep an eye out for our weekly uploads 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. And yeah, have a great one. See you very soon. Bye-bye.